dobry Państwu, witam Państwa bardzo serdecznie w imieniu Pani Dziekan. Mam przyjemność ponownie zaprezentować sylwetkę Pana Profesora Vladimíra Šlapety. Główne fakty na plakacie możecie przeczytać, że ojciec Pana Profesora Lubomír Šlapeta współpracował z Hansem Scharaunem, który wymyślił sale koncertowe w układzie winicowym tak popularne. Pan profesor już...
Układy winicowe, to piękne.
Pan profesor przybliża nam głównie czeski funkcjonalizm, tak będzie również dzisiaj osiedle Baba. Przyznam się szczerze, że ja nie słyszałem wcześniej, ale trochę sobie poczytałem. Nazywane jest takim praskim odpowiednikiem stuttgarckiego osiedla Waisenhof.
To tak było. I wrocławskiej Wówi też.
Także oddaję głos panu profesorowi, bo spodziewam się bardzo ciekawego wykładu, gdyż pan profesor jest nie tylko znawcą, ale przede wszystkim entuzjastą architektury, co na wykładach można naprawdę wyczuć, że wykłady są interesujące i z taką szczerą pasją wygłaszane. Panie profesorze, oddaję głos.
Dziękuję bardzo za zaproszenie. Dziękuję pani Marcie i panu Pawłowi za kind assistance during my stay in Malopolska. And at the beginning, I think I have to explain to your students what was German Werkbund. Maybe you have not heard too much about it. German Werkbund, as you see at the poster, was quite important association, which was founded 1907 in the furniture factory in Hellerau, which is a suburbia of Dresden, designed by Richard Riemenschmidt, architect from Munich. And the idea of Werkbund was to connect German industry, German entrepreneurs, with graphic designers, with artists, with architects, to promote German products, German industry, and to help to sell German products and German trade. And it was quite a successful project. They organized since 1907 every year a congress and exhibitions. And as a members, you can find a lot of prominent German artists and architects like Riemenschmidt, like Heinrich Tessenow, who also built in Hellerau, besides a factory, at first the Festspielhaus, which was a famous dancing school. Many ladies from Prague have attended this school, not only German ladies, but also Jewish and Czech ladies attended this Dalkros Schule, this famous dancing school, which was later converted to barracks of Soviet army. So it was a little bit trist view to see Hellerau during the communist time. Another important architect was Hermann Muthesius, architect who served as a German diplomat in London and compiled 3 volumes, Das Englische Landhaus, which was like a Bible in all architectural offices in Vienna and in Prague, and of course in Germany, and probably also in some offices in Krakow before the First World War, even in 20s. And the main topic of discussion between architects, this is one poster designed by Peter Behrens, who was also a prominent member of this association. And the topic which was going on through the whole history of Werkbund was a conflict or debate, discourse, if the architecture in 20th century should go in the direction to prefabrication, standardization, typization, etc., or if the individuality will still dominate in the activities of architects. And there have been two camps fighting against each other. On one side have been protagonists of standardization like Hermann Muthesius and Walter Gropius, and on the other side have been protagonists of individualism conducted by Henry van der Velde, who was a Belgian architect and designer who came to Germany in 1900, and he was appointed director of the Kunstgewerbeschule in Weimar, and he built the building where was later Bauhaus. And Marta studied in that building, so she can share her own experience in that building. And this discussion between individualism and collectivism, between universalism and individualism, culminated at the German Werkbund exposition in Cologne during the Congress, where on one side individualists like Bruno Taut presented their ideas. Bruno Taut presented his glass house inspired by writer Paul Scherbart, who published 1913 his book Die Glasarchitektur, the glass architecture, which inspired the whole expressionist movement then in early 20s. And the first step for this was a pavilion with a colorful cupola designed by Bruno Taut. Walter Gropius, on opposite side, built a model factory there, and Henry van der Velde, next individualist, built this beautiful exposition theater. Interesting is that at that time we have been connected, Krakow, Prague, Brno, with Vienna, because we have been all connected in one Austrian-Hungarian empire. For instance, my grandfather served in Krakow in Cavalleria, where is now located your Wydział Architektury. I cannot remember the name of the street, Prochoradzi? Podchoradzi. I am remembering only Austrian Cavalleria because of my grandfather. He came there always on the horse, and I am coming by tram. This is a little difference. And in the year 1914, also Polish architects from Krakow, Czech architects from Prague, and Hungarian architects from Budapest had a privilege to expose their work in this pavilion, which was designed by Josef Hoffmann, Viennese architect, student of Otto Wagner, who was born in Moravia, and he was very close friend of Jan Kotera, and I think they negotiated that all these nations, like Hungarians, Poles, and Czechs, will have some spaces inside of the pavilion. And it was the quite important presentation of Czech cubism inside of the pavilion. And Mladá Polska też tam byla vystavena. This is an interior of Czech part designed by Otakar Novotný with design products in glass, ceramics, and porcelain by Gočár, Janák, and others. And here you can see the next room inside of the pavilion, mostly designed by Josef Gočár in Cubist style. And then was also published a book which is connected with this Czech Werkbund, which is a topic of my lecture, because Czechs didn't want it to be exposed as a part of Austria. They wanted to show their autonomy, like also Mladá Polska. They wanted to be extra exhibited in these special spaces, and that's why they also founded Czechoslovak Werkbund. The same was in Hungary. I think in Poland wasn't founded Werkbund before the First World War. But they got also spaces inside of the pavilion, and as a result was published very small, interesting booklet, Tschechische Bestrebungen ein modernes Interieur, Czech striving for the modern interior, with pictures of that furniture. And also these sketches and furniture was published in the journal Der Sturm in Berlin, and it was quite important for the sharing of this concept of Czech cubism in architecture. Now I will show you faces of these protagonists of individualism and of rationalism. This is an elegant man, Henry van der Velde, as a director of the Kunstgewerbeschule in Weimar, and here is Muthesius and much younger Walter Gropius. And this is the result of the discussion. One cartoon in German journal. There was written that Mr. van der Velde created a chair, individual chair, and then Mr. Muthesius created a prototype of chair, and finally one simple carpenter created a chair which could be used really. So quite nice cartoon which I found in a German magazine. So this was this discussion in June 1914. Later in 20s, the whole concept of Werkbund shifted to industrialization and to modern movement in the sense of Bauhaus, etc. And the most important journal of German Werkbund was the journal Die Form, where have been published many manifestos by Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, Hugo Hering, Adolf Rading, Walter Gropius, etc. And this is a little history of Czech Werkbund, published in occasion of Baba exposition 1914. I cannot mention everything, but anyway, you can see many international expositions. At first, 1923 in Milano, in Mediolan, in Lombardia, in Den Haag, and then in Stuttgart, Copenhagen, Philadelphia, and especially there was a traveling exhibition which advertised the high standards of Czech technology, Czech design in Stockholm, Malmö, Strasbourg, and in Bucharest, because these have been cities where Czech industry and Czech trade had a very strong interest to have a lot of businesses. And you can see now the later development of Czech cubism, at first to Rondo cubism. This is table for Czech minister around 1922, of course, designed by Grand Seigneur Josef Gočár. This is 1922. Then Gočár was appointed professor of the academy. The first act, what he done, he has taken his students to Holland. They visited all these buildings in Amsterdam, designed by de Klerk and Kramer and Madame Kroffoller and others. And they visited Dudok in Hilversum. And the result of it was that Gočár in one cafeteria made a sketch for Czechoslovak pavilion in Paris, 1925. This is already the way of Gočár from this exalted monumental cubism to more civilized Dutch architecture and to tendencies moving to international style. But still you have here vertical elements which are unusual in later international style, and quite interesting connection between art and architecture. Motorcyclist designed by Otakar Švec, coincidentally, Otakar Švec later built the biggest Stalin memorial in Prague and then committed suicide in 50s because it was tragedy. He didn't expect it that he will win competition for Stalin, but he won. And then before the memorial was finished, Stalin was already in the gravestone in Red Square, and the whole Stalinism was liquidated by Khrushchev, so he was so shocked that he committed suicide. And on the other facade of the pavilion have been cooperating two friends of Gočár, the sculptor Jan Sturza with his famous sculpture Victor is the name of the sculpture, and then the state symbol of Czechoslovakia, Czech lion, designed by Otto Gutfreund, another prominent member of Czech Cubist movement as a sculptor. So we are now in the year 1925, and we are going on, and we are coming to Stuttgart, which was already mentioned in the introduction by Pavel, and this was an exposition initiated by Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, who was at that time deputy president of German Werkbund, and he initiated to organize an exposition with model houses by prominent group of German architects, but they invited also some architects from abroad, like Le Corbusier, who built two houses here, and like Mat Stam, who built a house here somewhere, and also the Belgian architect Victor Bourgeois and Dutch architects, another Dutch architect, Jacobus Oud. This is a poster of that exposition, and that exposition was visited by many Czech architects, and then came to the discussion if it wouldn't be possible to organize something similar in Czechoslovakia. And also this exposition was broadly published in Czech architecture journals. You can see here one page or two pages from the journal Stavba bis Corbusier building, and here Adolf Rading villa, and here these two gentlemen you can maybe recognize. The man with the pipe is Le Corbusier, and the other man is Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, who was conductor of this exposition. And here on opposite side, again, you have here this conflict between, or this discourse between individualism and between rationalism. On other side of the whole exposition was located house designed by Hans Scharoun, which was most probably inspired by the double-decker in Berlin, because Scharoun used daily, when he has gone to his office in Berlin, this new double-decker with the outside staircase, and he used this element in this staircase around the facade of his quite original house, which was his first commission for the Werkbund. And Scharoun, I think, benefited from Werkbund very much, because his three first houses have been built for German Werkbund. The house in Stuttgart, then wooden house for middle-class family at the exposition in Legnica, Gugali exposition 1927, and finally with the famous boarding house in Wrocław at the Wohnung und Werkraum exposition. And now you can see Czech reflections of the Stuttgart estate. This is a house which I see from my little flat in Brno, from my window. And this house, just recently, this month was destroyed because they wanted to restore the house, but the shape was so catastrophic that they have to demolish it. So I have now photographs from my every week visit in Brno. At first there are 3 floors, then I have 2 floors, and I think when I will come on Monday to Brno, there will be nothing. So this is the fate of the house, which was a model house of Czechoslovak Werkbund, built at the area of Brno Fair, Brno International Fair, designed by Josef Havlíček, prominent Prague architect, and all apartments have been designed by another architect, young architect, mostly students of Pavel Janák, who was chairman of Czechoslovak Werkbund, and this was somehow like a symbol of new dwelling inside of the Brno Fair, which was opened 1928. It means 1 year after Stuttgart Weissenhof. Important role started to play designer Ladislav Sutnar, who played such a role like, for instance, Felix Wagenfeld in Bauhaus, and later for German firms like Rosenthal or like Braun. Augenfeld was a prominent designer from 20s to 60s in Germany, and similar role played Ladislav Sutnar in Prague, who was director of the graphic school. He was excellent graphic designer, did a lot of posters, design of the cover of the journal Výtvarné snahy, and he was also a man who was responsible for image of Baba housing estate. 3 years later, he emigrated to America because he was also designer of interior of Czechoslovak pavilion in New York, 1939. So he remained in America, and he was quite successful working for American big companies like Sears, etc. And he also supported cultural circles of Czech emigration in America. Inside of the Brno Fair was built another family house by Czech Werkbund, designed by Oldřich Starý. So inside of Brno Fair, already 1 year after Weissenhof, have been built 2 model houses. And outside of that, in another location, was then built first Czech Werkbund estate, the new house in Wilson Forest, with 16 houses designed mostly by Brno architects, with one exception. Number 2 was a double house designed by Prague architect Josef Štěpánek, who was a best friend of Bohuslav Fuchs. That's why he was recommended. And interesting is the house number 6 and 5. It was designed by students of Brno School of Architecture. Here you have these actors of this action. In the center is Bohuslav Fuchs and Wiesner, who has a company with his duck here, as you see, and many other architects. Jiří Kroha is here. Jaroslav Siřiště, who was teacher of my father, who was director of the Baugewerbeschule, is standing there too. And this is a master plan of this estate. Triple house, Bohuslav Fuchs, double houses by Štěpánek, by Wiesner, and double houses by Víšek and by 2 students. Professors could build solitaire villas. Siřiště, Kroha, and only 2 professors, Kroha and Siřiště. But the result of this exposition was an economical disaster, because it was organized by 2 young building entrepreneurs. They have taken money as a credit from the bank, and then they couldn't sell these houses. They could sell at the beginning only double house by Wiesner, who was a little bit more conservative, a little bit Viennese style, not Czech radical modernism. So it was sold And then they could rent the double house designed by students, which was a surprise. But who rented this house? Brno Scouting Club. I will show you why. At first, the triple house by Bohuslav Fuchs, and besides of that is standing a quite beautiful double house by Josef Štěpánek. At the front of this small estate, and here you have the double house designed by students. And I think it was quite suitable for scouts, because if you look on the section of this house, there are split levels, quite complicated, because you have then, it's a little bit too small, but there is not only one spiral stairway in the middle, there is also another stairway to connect two levels in bedrooms, because these two bedrooms are overlaid. So the lower bedroom has a sleeping niche, which is only 140 centimeters, which is not for normal middle-class family. So I think it was quite useful for scouts. So, and in Prague, they have seen these troubles. This is the cheapest triple house by Jaroslav Grund, and the whole estate in front is this little bit more conservative double house by Arnošt Wiesner, Jewish architect in Brno. And the most expensive house built Professor Kroha, who was communist. This is also a paradox that communists build the most expensive house. And later he was a protagonist of a house for existential minimum. But when he had a chance, he built also something for existential maximum. Plans of Kroha House. And now we come to Silesia. Already was here mentioned the Werkbund estate in Wrocław, in Breslau, with two prominent buildings, with Hans Scharoun's boarding house here, and with Statek, how it was titled, the ocean liner designed by Adolf Rading. The designer, like Sutnar in Prague, was Johannes Molzahn, the graphic designer who came to Wrocław from Magdeburg. He worked in Magdeburg together with Bruno Taut at the time when Bruno Taut was city building conseiller of the city of Magdeburg, and he was responsible for colorful scheme and colorful composition of housing estates in Magdeburg. He also designed all books of Bruno Taut. So if you will find in the library some books, Die Wohnung, for instance, and etc., or there is also a beautiful yellow book on own house of Bruno Taut. The design of the book is by Johannes Molzahn, who designed this famous poster for Wohnung und Werkraum exposition. And now again, I can show you the quite successful reflection of Scharoun's boarding house at the Czech architectural magazine Stavitel. What is important is the split level minimal apartments in the house. There is only one corridor which is serving for 3 floors, because you have always in the corridor 2 doors, and through one door you go up to next level where is a living room, and above the corridor is a little bedroom, and from the next door opposite side is then you go down, and under the corridor is the small bedroom. So it was an idea of split levels, and also the idea that architecture could be connected with the design of big ocean liners, because Hans Scharoun has grown up in Bremerhaven. His father was director of the brewery, which was located just besides of, how to say it in English, where are produced boats, loděnice. Shipyards in English, and in Polish? Stocznia Gdańska, ja wiem. No. So he has grown up directly in Stocznia, and that's why he was impressed by this ocean liner type of architecture, and it was his great success. And I think from that moment, Scharoun belonged to the Parnasse of German architectural scene from 1929. But also in Brno and Prague, many things happened and moved. Also thanks to Bohuslav Fuchs, who initiated exhibition of civilized women in Brno, where have been shown the new technology, new equipment of laundry, new equipment of kitchen, new refrigerator, etc. Everything was shown, and also with this beautiful poster, like also the image of lady is changing, not anymore long hairs, they will be cutted, and the lady will play another role in the new society. This poster was designed by Zdeněk Rossmann, architect who spent I think 1.5 years at the Bauhaus in Dessau. And Czechs, of course, followed movements abroad. Here you can see the excursion of Pavel Janák with his school. This is Pavel Janák to Stockholm. There was also exposition of Czech Werkbund, and he has taken all his students like Richard Podzemny, this tall man who would be very good player of basketball, but he was also a very good architect. He was with him, and assistant Koželka and many other architects from the time visited Stockholm exhibition. They visited also Hilversum Sanatorium by Dijker, etc. And here is this Czech presentation in Stockholm with a catalog cover, again designed by Ladislav Sutnar, and the interior was designed together by Ladislav Sutnar and Bohuslav Fuchs with a hanging model of Czech aeroplane. We had very strong military aeroplanes at that time. I think we had 900 aeroplanes at that time, but Germany had, I think, twice 1,800. So this was the balance during the Munich Agreement 1939. But nowadays, I think we have 5 Gripens. And when I see the Balice airport, I can calculate that only in Krakow you have 12 or 13 aeroplanes, military aeroplanes inside of the airport. So now we are very weak. So without Poland, we will be very, very weak to defend us against Russia. So thanks to Poland, Poland has the strongest army, I think, in Europe slowly. Yeah. Pavel Janák was really motor of this movement as a chairman of Werkbund. So he did analysis and study with his students about small family houses. So this is a task for students at the Prague Kunstgewerbeschule by design of a standardized small house, which was somehow a base for his analysis for the Baba estate in Prague. You can see the plans here, quite similar, but with some interesting ideas. And then you can see Mr. Janák with the students and models of these projects. And then what did Czech Werkbund in Prague? They have seen the economical catastrophe in Brno, so they decided to organize the exposition in Baba estate by different way. They organize somehow free association of friends and potential clients of Werkbund, and they could select architect of the Werkbund and to pay from own pocket the house. So the Prague estate is only one of these expositions which happened in Stuttgart, in Breslau, in Vienna, in Zurich, and in Brno. The only one was Prague, where it is not normal. It is a normal dialogue between architect and client, not houses as manifestos. So the client played role, but that's why also the idea of tenement house or double house was liquidated. Everybody wanted to build own chateau. But at first, Werkbund in Prague organized two competitions. One competition for the smallest house for young architects. And there was an idea that the winning projects could be executed, but it has not happened because these houses have been so minimal that nobody wanted to pay from own pocket so small house. And then a second competition for a little booklet propagating the new system of dwelling. The competition for the booklet won a trio of architect Jacques, the manager of Werkbund, Dr. Herein, and Ladislav Sutnar. This is a design of Ladislav Sutnar, and the book was then published. And also Sutnar designed the cover of the book about the competition of young architects. I will show you some of winning projects. And this is, for instance, a type which presented Ladislav Žák in this booklet. And this was then a prototype of his house unit, which he realized as a real Baba estate with 3 cabin-like bedrooms in upper floor and longitudinal living room downstairs. And so this was from one book. This is axonometry. And then the winning project for the smallest house by Richard Podzemny, Ossendorf, and Tenzer. 3 students have won this competition for, you see this very minimal house. It's like a small weekend house on the lake, but not as a house for permanent living. The third prize received a student of Bauhaus, a student of Hannes Meyer, Antonín Urban, who was impressed by the idea which was discussed in Berlin and in Bauhaus, the growing house, das wachsende Haus. So he has designed a house which could be extended if happens that they will have more children, so there will be more small bedrooms. Interesting is then the fate of Antonín Urban. Antonín Urban was important draftsman in the office of Hannes Meyer, and he was draftsman of the famous ADGB Schule school in Bernau near Berlin. And then when Hannes Meyer was fired from the Bauhaus and he has gone to Soviet Union, Antonín Urban joined him to Soviet Union. He married one Moscow architect, Ludmila. They had a daughter, so he couldn't escape back because Hannes Meyer has seen what is happening in Stalin time in Soviet Union. So Hannes Meyer escaped through Czechoslovakia to Mexico. But Antonín Urban, because he was already father, he had family, he remained, and then he was shot by KGB in Lublanka prison house in Moscow in the year 1938. I think we should remain such things today because we do know what is happening not far from here in the Ukraine. There have been ideas also for tenement houses. This is an idea for tenement houses with shops, but for such tasks they couldn't find client. So this collapsed. This was a design of Josef Havlíček, who designed this model house in Brno. So this was his design together with Karel Honzik. And there was also the idea of row houses by František Gerhardt, but even the idea of terraced houses collapsed. Everybody wanted to have a solitaire house or solitaire house with atelier, because some of clients have been artists, or there have been houses with two flats, for instance, one big flat for the family with a small annex for grandmother or for daughters. So this is the types which have been then executed in Baba 1932, but it was a long process. This is the first master plan of Pavel Janák. You can see the master plan system with a chess system that there is a view from the second row to the valley of Vltava river, with the idea that in the last row would be built minimal houses from this competition, but it collapsed finally too. So this is the first master plan from September 1929. There is a second master plan with the idea to make groups of houses designed by the same architect, you see, which partly was realized. There have been few examples that, for instance, Gochard has 3 villas in one location finally. But it changed still. Then there was a model. Here you have still double houses. This is, for instance, double house designed by Bohuslav Fuchs, which was not executed, or even Pavel Janák, who had all the time problems with money, so he wanted also to build double house, but he couldn't find anybody who would build with him, so finally he built only one half of the house, and in the last row was the idea to build these minimal houses, but it collapsed too. Now I will show you few unexecuted projects, because it came to the economical crisis after the collapse of stock exchange in New York. So some of designs collapsed, like this one by Josef Štěpánek. I mentioned Štěpánek in Brno. So this was his design. Then designed by Otakar Novotný, quite unknown design. And then Bohuslav Fuchs' double house also collapsed. Jaromír Krejcar design collapsed. And I am very sorry that this house collapsed. This is a design by František Gerhardt, who is not so known, but he built 5 houses at the Baba estate. It was quite successful, but this house was not built. This house is interesting that this is a house with atelier connected with gallery type of living room. But unfortunately, this idea also collapsed. But then we are at the building site. Pavel Janák is here, and they are searching already the first steps in the location. The exhibition was opened in beginning of September 1932. No one house was finished, so all houses have been shown as not finished houses, which was quite interesting for visitors, because they could see really the process of modern building site. And there have been 15,000 visitors till 15th of November. And it has response then in many houses which have been built not only in Prague, but also in provincial cities in Brno, Olomouc, Ostrava, etc. Before I will show you the final result of Baba, I have to mention that there was also Werkbund in Switzerland. So this is Swiss Werkbund estate in Neubiel, which is a suburbia of Zurich, with prominent Swiss architects like Steiger, who worked with Frank Lloyd Wright, and Artaria Schmidt. Schmidt was connected with Bauhaus and also with Dutch avant-garde, and Alfred Roth worked with Le Corbusier on Weissenhof houses. This is the result. So you see that in Switzerland, capitalist country, have been used more collective form of dwelling as in bourgeois Prague. And then was also built a Werkbund estate in Vienna by Austrian Werkbund with a house by Richard Neutra from Los Angeles, and also André Lursa, the rival of Corbusier, built these terraced houses, and Adolf Loos. These two double houses have been built by Adolf Loos, and Spiritus Movens of the Viennese exposition was the chairman of Austrian Werkbund, Josef Frank, Jewish architect who escaped before Nazis came to Sweden, and he played a role in the development of modern design and interior design in Sweden till 60s. He died in Sweden in the mid of 60s. Richard Neutra house, you can see here. And now we are back in Prague. So this is a final poster, still with double houses, which have not been executed, and with these minimal houses in the last row. A poster designed by Suttner, and here is a cover of the catalog with the final stage, which was exposed in fall 1932. Some houses, as you see, haven't been yet built. They have been built 1 year later, till the mid of 30s. This is the view from 1932. And now some details. And this is already view from 1939. So there are already more houses. And now I can show you a few of these houses. This is a house which was occupied by Ladislav Suttner, the designer. Quite beautiful, simple house with a small atelier here, designed by Oldřich Starý. This is the plan, but later the atelier was too small, so he extended the atelier in this way with a window to the north, because this slope is oriented to the south, so it's quite suitable, with a beautiful view to the valley of Vltava River and to the Prague Acropolis with the Prague Cathedral. Interior of the atelier of Ladislav Suttner. And the dining area in the house connected through this window directly in the kitchen. And I have forgotten to say that also there was a planning for landscape. So there was prescribed what kind of trees should be in each garden, and also the fence was prescribed for also. That's why the whole estate got a very unified character. This is designed by Otakar Firlinger, who designed several gardens there. It's an interesting name. His brother was Premier Minister, and which we regard as a traitor, because Firlinger brother was ambassador in Moscow during the war, and he initiated close connection with Soviet Union, and then he, how to say, sold social democracy to communists in the year 1948. But his brother, landscape architect, died during the war, so he couldn't be witness of this catastrophic behavior of his brother. This is a little bit politics, but you have similar cases in Poland, I am sure, like Gomulka and Gierek, etc. I remember it from 60s and 70s. This is a second house by Oldřich Starý, again for artists, for very famous illustrator Cyril Bouda. The family still lives there. Now grandson is living there. This is again a house with an atelier. You see the plan, and there is a connection between living room, relatively small and a little bit bigger atelier with two levels. The interior of the atelier of Cyril Bouda. And here is Pavel Janák designed for the double house, which was not executed. He little bit changed the plan, but I think the main concept remained. So the double house by Janák, and then the final house which was realized. It was quite well restored short time ago. Again with a round plan with 2 levels in living room and spiral stairway in the middle of the plan. Pavel Janák house. And so now we will give farewell to Pavel Janák, and we will come to 3 houses designed by Ladislav Žák, who was a star of this exposition. This is a house for Karel Herein. Karel Herein was the secretary of Werkbund, and he was at that time deputy director of the Kunstgewerbe Museum in Prague, and he was also a very important motor of all Werkbund activities. Ladislav Žák designed for him house with a strip window to the south, to the view to the Moldau, to the Vltava river. In upper floor there are 2 bedrooms and quite comfortable bathroom and terrace from which you could see the Vedutta di Praga with the cathedral and the valley of Vltava. Interesting is that Ladislav Žák, before he designed his house, visited Werkbund exposition in Breslau, in Wrocław, and written quite enthusiastic article about Scharoun. And then he also used a little bit nautic form of the round staircase. Here you can see the house also with terraces. Second house he built for a professor of geometry. And for him he designed the north facade with a bullet window from the staircase. And again, strip windows in the south front. You can see here the plan. This is a west corner of the house and the south front of the house with the balcony. Street facade. And I have not mentioned one thing. Žák, Havlíček, and some others studied with Josef Gočár, and Gočár designed the pavilion, which I have shown you at the beginning in Paris. They made an excursion to Paris, and they have been quite impressed by this building at the Paris exposition. This was one unit for Maison d'Habitation for Le Corbusier, which was used as a pavilion of the journal L'Esprit Nouveau. And, yeah, pardon? 25, yes. Interesting is that in Bologna was made a replica of it in 80s by brothers Gressleri. But anyway, these Czech students have been so impressed by this pavilion that then they had in their head only one day we have to build also such standardized unit as one villa, which could be combined to build a big maison d'habitation. And this happened in the third. This is the Corbusier idea, how you could connect these units to big complex. And Ladislav Žák in the third house built this little unit. Here are his sketches. I will show you now a few sketches of Ladislav Žák. And now we will come to the result. And this is what he built, really like a standardized unit, which could be extended with many examples to build unité d'habitation. This is a north facade, and you can see the plan. It would be easy. This cube, cube to multiply in a maison d'habitation. This is quite nice plan because it has this longitudinal living room with 2 levels, and then covered terrace downstairs, upstairs this cabin-like bedrooms, and then the terrace with framed corniche, which is typical for Ladislav Žák later architecture. This is the south facade. The client was a lawyer, Dr. Hugo Zaorálek. The family got the house back after the collapse of communism. The family emigrated to America, but they got it back. This entrance, like entrance to the little boat. And the interior, Žák was also successful as an interior designer. He designed interiors, I think, of 5 villas there, and he became suddenly star of Czech dwelling culture. The bathroom and the living room with modest but elegant furniture produced by Czech companies. And now we go on. This is a view, diagonal view. This is Pavel Janák house. The next one is villa designed by Josef Gočár for very high official of Ministry of Education. And this house was designed only one lady who was acting at that exposition, Madame Hanna Kučerová-Závěská. She was a student of Pavel Janák, and she married one bankier, diplomat. She was daughter of bankier, and the husband was a Czech ambassador in Stockholm. That's why her career was short, because she moved to Stockholm in 1935. But she built 2 houses at the Baba estate. And when we did the exposition of Baba in Stockholm, I have spoken about this house, and suddenly somebody was belling on my arm, and it was a son of Madame Kučerová-Závěská. The plan. The client here was a director of Statistic Institute in Prague, but he was also a composer of music. You will see that's why he has a big piano in the living room. You see it on the plan. And there is still living the original family, 3rd generation already. Now you can see the piano and the dining area, again with this direct connection to the kitchen. Second house of Madame Kučerová-Závěská was the biggest house in the estate. The client was a building entrepreneur who produced several villas in the Baba. 3 building companies built this Baba estate. One of them was Mr. Suk, and this is villa for Mr. Suk, designed by Hanna Kučerová-Závěská. I think she was impressed by this villa by Le Corbusier, Villa Garches, or Madame Stein, nearby of Paris. Also because in the Villa Garch there is a round wall inside, and she also used here, as you see, the round wall. The villa from the diagonal view. And now we came to the case of Marstam. Mr. Parička was the second builder who was active as a building company at the estate, and his wife was textile designer and professor of Kunstgewerbeschule. And they visited Stuttgart, and they have been impressed by Marstam triple house, so they asked Stam to design their house. So this is only one exception that foreign architect has designed a house. This is the proposal, first proposal of Marstam. Then I discovered that there are 3 proposals for the house. All are kept in Centre Canadien d'Architecture in Montreal. There I discovered these all plans, and there is also date. So the last version was dated, I think, 13th of October 1931. And next day, Marstam left to Soviet Union. So he has never supervised the building site, and he was not very happy with the result. But this perspective was published in the Dutch journal De Achten Opbouw, which was an avant-garde journal of Dutch group, De Achten Opbouw. Here is the triple house in Stuttgart by Stam, and with the interior to compare. And here the final version by Stam, which was built, and the house was restored just recently because the new owner is a millionaire, former communist who became now millionaire, but he started to collect modern art and he let it to restore. This is already this building after the restoration. And now we are coming to Josef Gočár. You see the Paveljanák villa, and Josef Gočár is again one exception because it's only one house where the living room is in upper floor because of the beautiful view on the valley of Vltava, and downstairs are bedrooms. Interesting is also development of the project. Above is the first version. In that version is still living room in the parterre, and then the last step was that he changed it and he has located living room in upper floor. The client was a very high official of the Ministry of Education, Dr. Maule. Very long living room with strip window and beautiful view to Vltava river. Next house built Gočár for Professor of History, Dr. Glücklich. It was a house which was not finished 1932. It was finished at first 1934. And you can see here another difference. The age of architects. The youngest architect was born 1905, so 27 years old. And the eldest architect was born 1876, so the difference is 29 years. Gočár was the second eldest. He was born 1880. Jacques was born 1900, simply 1900. And you can see a little bit more monumental style as Jacques. Jacques' type is more houses machine, but in this case it is still old Italy with a hierarchy of spaces. You can go in through the beautiful pergola like in Capri Island, etc. Quite beautiful house, which was now quite well restored by the new owner. This is the plan. Also, the plan is more classical with a living hall and staircase in the middle, like in elder concepts of English villas in Englischen Landhaus of Muthesius. The back side of the house. and the interior of the living hall. Third house by Gochar was again for high official of the ministry, Mr. Kytlica. This is a house with 2 flats. In this floor is a bigger flat for the family, and then is a little annex for the daughter or for the grandmother. This is also one of the biggest, I think it is second biggest house in the estate after Madame Kučerová Záveska. This house, number 1, is designed by Josef Fuchs, not Bohuslav Fuchs, Josef Fuchs, who designed Prague Fair with Oldřich Tyl, and the client was a director of Prague Fair, so it was a logical connection. House which was also published in Italy in 30s in connection with Triennale di Milano. Here are the plans. And there are some houses with 2 same flats, each floor same flat. There are 3 villas. The most beautiful one is this one designed by Eugen Linhart and Antonín Hajtum with beautiful plan. And also this, I find nice, this combination strip window, conservatory, loggia, and again strip window, quite beautiful tractatus, the facade. And I like this plan with this beautiful circulation between the loggia, bedroom, and living room. The last house which was built for one factory owner, Mr. Zadák, by architect František Zelenka, who was famous as a stage designer and graphic designer. He designed beautiful posters for Prague Avant-Garde Theatre or for Aero Cabriolet cars, and built only few houses in Prague. But he did a lot of stage design for National Theatre and for Avant-Garde Theatre. Unfortunately, he was a Jew, and he ended in Auschwitz nearby. And here is the house. Yeah, I mentioned František Gerhardt already, that he built 5 villas. Coincidentally, he built a villa for a rector of Technical University and a rector for Charles University. This is a villa for the rector of Charles University, Dr. Bělohrádek, with little bit aerodynamic gesture in the penthouse. And this was also interesting personality, Professor Bělohrádek, because he strongly protested against communist coup d'etat 1948, and that's why he emigrated to Switzerland, and he worked there for United Nations in Switzerland. Second house this is the same house for Dr. Bělohrádek, designed by František Gerhardt. This is the second house by the same architect, František Gerhardt, for the rector of Technical University, Professor Košťál. And then Janák led to do a new master plan in the year 1933. There are already more houses as during the exposition 1932. So finally, this part was realized, and the last row remained empty till the end of 30s, when people have again invested money, because if you are before the war, people are investing money, because money usually after the war have no value. So people built a lot of apartment houses, villas, and weekend houses in late 30s. How was reflected the Baba estate? It's interesting Karel Teige, as a strong leftist, criticized the housing, that it is for middle class and that it is not task for modern architects. For modern architects, only social housing for proletariat, etc. And he strongly criticized the estate in his book, The Smallest Flat, which was now republished also as a reprint in English, I think, 10 years ago. And he proposed that the best model for the new housing would be Sanatorium by Jaromír Krejcar in Slovakia, quite beautiful building. I have shown it here during my lecture on Czech functionalism. Quite beautiful building in Trenčanské Teplice in Slovakia with the terraces. Here is the model. And then one collage from Czech magazine 1933. So the shock of some establishment that it is very big danger that such houses will be located as a postament of Prague Castle. I think it's quite nice cartoon. And finally, very sharp critic of Czech engineers about the technology of these houses and also about economical balance. For them it was too expensive, etc. So this is quite critical article in the journal Architect SIA. SIA was an association of engineers. And even Jaromír Krejcar, architect of the sanatorium and husband of Milena, which was a fiancé of Franz Kafka, they both have written quite critical articles against the middle-class housing and especially about the Villa Tugendhat. They have written that the canalization in the last village is more important as a Villa Tugendhat. But President Masaryk supported this new spirit, and this is a photograph how is Masaryk leaving the exposition of new furniture and housing in Prague 1933. The inside of this exposition with the furniture by Ladislav Žák, quite beautiful steel tube furniture with a surrealist picture by Josef Šíma, who later emigrated to France and lived in Paris. Quite beautiful, standardized living room by Ladislav Žák for this exposition in 1933. And again, analysis by Pavel Janák of all houses at the Baba. But what happened later have been built few houses nearby. For instance, this house, which is like a Heimatstil in Germany, but it was designed by architect from, I think, from Serbia, whose name was Cyril Župans, who emigrated before Nazi came to Prague to Sweden, and then he lived in Sweden. He wanted also to rebuild some houses of Baba in that spirit, but it has not happened. And then one, I would say, moderate, modern villa, own house of the architect Antonín Černý, who was a devil. He was the biggest Stalinist later. When I studied, he was quite unpleasant person, but he lived in this bourgeois style nearby, in the last row of Baba. And Czech Werkbund built for their purposes a beautiful palace at the Národní třída in Prague, where have been then many expositions on Czech housing, culture and design. So it was quite important location for Czech design, art and architecture with a beautiful arcade. There is a movable roof. If sunlight is coming, roof is moving and the light is coming directly in the atrium. inaugurated 1937.
Where is it?
Národní třída. So the street from Národní divadlo to Václavské náměstí. Now, have you still time, or you are already completely tired, fatigué? I can show you quite quickly few villas as a response of Baba. Ladislav Žák, then he built 3 villas for elite of Czech intelligentsia. This is a villa for aircraft designer, Dr. Hein, in the north of Prague. Quite beautiful house as an extended version of this unit, which I have explained you a few minutes earlier. The interior, the studio of Mr. Hein. He designed these aircrafts for Czech army. These 900 aircrafts of Czech army. And he is now inspecting his aeroplanes, how they are circulating there, because the house is located only 3 miles from the military airport of Prague. Mrs. Hein could be relaxed at the terrace. Second house he designed for Czech film director Martin Fritsch. In that case, again, the living room is in upper floor and downstairs bedrooms. Inside of the villa. And now few other examples, and then I will liberate you. This villa designed Richard Podzemný in České Budějovice still as a student. And then he designed quite beautiful summer house, approximately 30 kilometers of Prague in Louňovice, photographed by Josef Sudek, the most famous Czech photographer. With a maisonette plan, and it's quite good combination, night view and day view. And this is a house designed by my father and my uncle in Ostrava, also influenced by Baba. My father held a lecture in radio, and then he got some clients to build the houses, and this is the result in Ostrava. There are few other houses of my father in Opava and in Hlučín, nearby of Ratibor, of the Polish border, Silesia. My father was 25 years old when he built the villa, so quite young. And this is a villa designed by my teacher, Sturza. He was also like Taige, protagonist of architecture for existential minimum, and heavily criticized all bourgeois villas. But then he got a commission to build a huge villa in Čelákovice near Prague, which he never published. At first in '68, when he was very old. But what happened to him, he was very beloved Professor Villa, I liked him very much, but he had one problem in his life. He built the Stalin monument with this sculptor, Schwetz. And his uncle was the famous sculptor who made Victor for Gottschalk. So we heard from him a lot of stories about Gottschalk, Sturza, Gutfreund, etc. This was then, when I came to study, behind his head was a big Veduta of Stalin. And I thought, my God, where am I coming now? But in '68, suddenly came this perspective. So it was quite different. But he was quite funny man. It is a very beautiful cartoon of him. The house was now restored, and it's possible to visit the house. It's approximately 15 kilometers from Prague, direction to Mladá Boleslav. I think it's enough. Dziękuję bardzo.